Okay, good evening. We are live. This is How to Fight CPS and Win. We're going to talk about some evidence in CPS cases this evening, and we're also joined by Miss Georgette Truan, my co-host. Miss G, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. I hear a train in the background. Is
Sorry,
that?
I'm outside.
Oh, that's right. So our special guest tonight is Miss Lindsay Michelle. Miss Lindsay, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Trying to be.
Good, good. Where are you coming to us from?
Ohio,
Oh, what part of Ohio?
Fostoria,
Where?
Fostoria.
Where is that in relationship to Cleveland?
Um, I I don't know. I used to
Okay,
live in Fremont.
okay. But you've heard of Cleveland, Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess there's some CPS shenanigans going on there in Ohio. Why don't you tell me what's going on?
So I was living in Fremont, Ohio. It was me, my 8-year-old daughter, and my ex. And the day that this specific thing happened, I was sick. And then I was outside talking to my dad because he brought me some medicine, and I was telling him how my ex, like how he was reacting. He tased my 8-year-old while I was outside talking to my dad.
Your ex tased your 8-year-old?
Yes,
What was the reason for that?
because um I just recently got her in August of last year, and her she came to me specifically and told me that her dad touched her inappropriately, and I sorry. um
Okay, take your time.
and he wanted me to put her in foster care because she had his ADHD problems, and she wasn't listening, and I was trying to get her into counseling because her school wanted to get her into counseling, so I was trying to do that. And then CPS went behind my back, talked to their supervisor, and said that it was no longer safe for her to be in the apartment with us.
And how did CPS get involved? Did somebody report the tasing?
Um, she told her nurse at school.
And the nurse told CPS?
Yes, and I told her not, like, I was handling it. I was just trying to find somewhere for her and me to go, and no, none of my family would take us in. So I had to go to somebody's house that I knew him since the 5th grade.
And did you ever lose custody of the child?
My so-called cousin has temporary custody of her right now.
Do you and your cousin get along?
Nope.
Did you get along before this?
No.
No.
We did when we were a child, and we don't now since we're older.
Okay, so they filed a case against you because your ex tased the child.
Yeah, they're trying to say that I didn't keep her safe.
Okay, well, you know, I don't know about Ohio, but in California, you can't. There's something called a superseding intervening fact. And in this particular case, unless you knew that he goes around tasing kids or people, there's nothing much you could have done to prevent this.
Yeah, I didn't know. I had no idea. And then when we met, I asked him. I I was up front. I asked him. I was like, I have 3 kids. I was like, is that a problem for you? He said no. And then when I got custody of my daughter, it all changed. He started changing.
He being the boyfriend.
Yeah.
Hmm. What do you think, Miss G?
Um, he didn't change. He was always that way. You just didn't pay attention to it. People like that don't change. They just learn how to mask themselves better. So, and I think you were sucked in the women in general. When we're with someone, right? We tend to be feel comfortable to the abuse, right? If we're not paying attention to it, you tend to feel comfortable to the abuse. So he's always been there. You just didn't realize it. So it had nothing to do with your new boyfriend or not. It has nothing to do with that. He's always been there. Okay.
In California, there is a priority of relatives that can get the child. Any
Mhm.
relative can get the child, but there's a priority given to certain relatives, like the grandfather, the grandmother, the aunts and uncles,
Well,
and
my dad, he's on oxygen, and so he's not able because she's been actually passed around to person, and because at first my dad had her, and CPS told me I could have her until I got a 2-bedroom place. Well, I'm here with my current boyfriend now, and he we're just waiting for the our 2-bedroom to be painted and we can move it. And then they said that as soon as we get our 2-bedroom, I'm gonna have her back. Now I have to go to court and fight.
do you have a court-appointed attorney?
Yeah, but she hasn't. I tried to call her. She tried to call, and she says she doesn't want to like talk to me until like court happens. And it's like a free lawyer that I got.
So you have a court appointed attorney,
Yes.
which most likely they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
I knew it. Okay.
Are you able to go talk to a private attorney for like a consultation or something?
I've been trying, and they want $200 up front, and I'm on Social Security.
Hmm. Okay. Any family members or friends that could help you?
I've been asking my mom because she's the one that has a lot of money right now, and she's no help. Like
Okay.
like 1 minute she's telling my cousin that she would take me to go have visitations with my daughter, and then the last minute she's telling me different.
What do you mean she's telling you different? Can you?
Like on the third, my cousin is having a birthday party for my daughter, and my mom knew for a while that this was happening, and now they got tickets to go to bike night. That's more important than going seeing her granddaughter at her birthday.
They
Wow.
got tickets to do what?
Go to bike night.
What's that?
Bike night. It's
Motorcycle.
like motorcycle ride.
Oh, your grandma
Like
is a motorcyclist?
Yes, my mom is.
Or your mom? Oh, wow.
it's fun, Davis. If you haven't tried it, it's fun.
My
But
mom,
your mom. So your mom can help you financially, but she chooses not to. And did she give you a reason why she couldn't help you financially?
her excuse is that a lot of people has been asking her for money, and so my stepdad and her don't want to when they.
Okay. What do you mean a lot of people? See, the thing is, people always tell me these stories, and then the grandparents or the relative member end up, um, dismissing the fact that the kids are suffering, right? They have the means and the money to help, but they don't want to help. So your mom, maybe she doesn't understand the full story about CPS or what happens to children or how they frame parents. Maybe she needs to have a clear understanding of what's really happening, because oftentimes grandparents or siblings, relatives, they think that the system works, right? They think if
Well,
you follow the plan, if you do this, if you do that, the system works. If I were you, I would give your mom my name and number, and maybe after the show you can give me her information and I can call your mom myself, and maybe I can somehow give her a little bit clearer picture of what's going on with the grandkids. Okay.
okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm going to put my direct number on the private chat, so make sure you call me. I'm going to give you two numbers. Always text me your full name, and then we'll talk about your mom a little bit, and then to get a little bit idea from you about her, and then I will definitely give her a call. Okay, so I'm going to send it in the private chat, so just let me know if you can see the private chat. Okay.
Okay.
Lindsay, did you have any other questions for me?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Um, my current boyfriend, he has two kids of his own, and um, they're and then people are trying to call CPS anonymously and said that he has a domestic violence on his background, and he don't, because if he did had anything on his background, he wouldn't be allowed to live here. And they do background checks, and they're trying to use that and say that he can't go with me to go visit my daughter, but my ex-husband, my daughter's dad, could bring whoever he wants.
Okay, so these are issues which I call red herring issues, meaning don't get bogged down in that. Is it right? No, right? But don't spend all your energy on that issue. Spend your energy on getting your children back.
That's what I'm trying to do too.
Okay. You know, you may want, in many cases, I
Because
see unfair um, things done to people, treated differently for whatever reason. Um, I'm
this
not,
my
I'm not,
story is like it's been one sided. Like he gets
yeah,
whatever he wants, and I don't.
yeah. You know why I think that happens a lot is because social workers are blaming you for what happened because they can't blame the dad. He didn't do it, the boyfriend did it. So they're giving him a little extra special, treatment.
No,
And is
actually, they actually blame they actually give the children to the abuser, and I think by now maybe it's clearer to you, Vincent. So the abuser usually have the children.
okay, Miss Lindsay, as I was saying,
Whatever.
for whatever reason, they're treating him differently than you. Don't get bogged down in it, okay? Because that's not your goal. Your goal is to not get your boyfriend visitation because the father's girlfriend can have visitation. That's not your goal. Your goal is to get your children back.
And
And
I
that's
just
what,
wanted him to go with me for moral support because me and my cousin
I,
does not get along.
and I think that should happen, but it's not happening for whatever reason. Are there things you could do about it, you and your attorney? Yes. Will your attorney do it? I don't know. Right?
My attorney ain't really helping me much at all.
But here's something that I'll tell you that might surprise you. Arguably, whether your boyfriend can have visitation or not doesn't fall within the scope of your court-appointed attorney's representation. A long time ago, a person asked me, a person was arrested and for committing alleged child abuse. And a case was started against him in the CPS court system. and he hired me to represent him in the CPS court system. The police were just investigating the criminal case, right? But nothing had been done. Finally, the police um, filed a case against him, and he had to go appear in the criminal court. And I think he was honest about this. He honestly believed that my scope of representation included representing him in the criminal case, even though our agreement said I'm only representing you in the CPS case. And, he was quite offended that I wouldn't go fight the DA and the people of California for him, that I would only help him fight the social workers. Right.
Hmm.
So you know, it's a legal thing what a lawyer can or will do for you. And arguably, your boyfriend's visitation isn't within your attorney's scope of representation. Now, if you had a private attorney, it might be related enough where that attorney may go and say, okay, I'm going to help her get, visitation for her boyfriend so he can go during the visits for moral support. Okay. But that kind of is over and above what my job would be, technically speaking. And when you have a court appointed attorney, they're not going to go, generally speaking, they're not going to go above board, to do something to help you. Right. They're going to stick right in their job circuit. I have a very good friend who has a young relative in criminal court right now. And the friend called the public defender, who was the court appointed attorney for this young man. And the public defender wouldn't return the call. And the client in jail mentioned to his public defender and saying, hey, my relative is calling you, please call her. And the public defender had no hesitation in saying, I don't represent her and I don't have to discuss the case with anyone except you. You're an adult and I only represent you. I was appointed to represent you, not give information to your relative. And it wasn't as if the relative was a witness. The relative wasn't a witness, just an interested relative calling to find out what can be done or what should be done. And the public defender was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not within the scope of my employment. Now, if it was a private attorney, the private attorney would probably call the relative and, try to give the relative some information, perhaps. But it's just different. Don't expect that when you get a court-appointed attorney that they're appointing Johnny Cochran to you, because they're not. He's dead, and it's not required by law, no matter what you think. You follow me?
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned in law school is that the law is very narrow. In other words, it's not what you think it is. Things are very narrowly analyzed. It'd be like, you hired me to do your CPS case, then you want me to do your divorce case, then you want me to do your criminal case, then you want
Right.
me to help your mom on her trust case. Where does it stop? Where does it end? Any other questions you had for me, Miss Lindsay?
Yeah, yeah, one more. I was just wondering, like, they're trying to use every little thing against me. They're trying to nitpick at me, saying I made my daughter wear boys' clothes, and then they're trying to say that I was on drugs, and I just did a drug test, and they said that the newest thing that they said me and my daughter went to a homeless shelter and stayed, and I left her there to go get drugs and alcohol, and I don't drink and I don't do drugs.
Well, they can say anything they want. They still have to prove it one day in court. You know, and I don't think that you should, I know it's hard, but when people are standing in court saying things that aren't true, um, it's hurtful and it's bothersome. I don't think it's going to have an eventual effect on the outcome of your case when you have a trial. I was in court the other day on a case, and the minor's attorney made a factual argument about something, and it was completely false. It was a false representation, but it wasn't a trial; it was a preliminary hearing. And afterwards, I talked to the minors' counsel, and in a very nice and professional way, I told that attorney, I said, "Look, where did you get ABC from? It's not in any report. The kid's 6 months old, so the kid couldn't have told you. Like, where did you get that fact? Oh, I thought I read it someplace." And in a very nice way, I said, "Look, if you do that again, we're going to have to take some type of corrective action, because you can't stand up in court and just say things that are false, that are just no basis." And it wasn't like um, it was flowing from something that was true. You know, it was just bald-faced facts that he couldn't have known anyway, because they weren't in any report. He hadn't talked to any witnesses, and he just says ABC just to make the mom look bad. But if those things are happening, there are things that you can do to rectify those situations. You can file a complaint against that attorney with your local state bar. You and your attorney can make a motion to have that attorney disqualified and taken off the case. And have I ever seen that? Yes, I have seen that. A lot of people don't do it all the time, but yeah, I've seen it. So if those things are being said, and the same for the social worker. Not too long ago, and I'm doing this more and more recently, I'm telling people, if the social worker is telling, bald-faced lies, to file a complaint, with Department of Health and Human Services, with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, with the main state or not county, but main state Department of Social Services. Because unless you do a complaint, there's no way anybody's going to resolve it. And people are just going to get away with saying, crazy stuff in court that has no factual basis. So, but that's something you and your attorney have to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Have to decide. Any other questions, Lindsay?
No.
No? Well, Mr. Darren Guai has joined us. Good evening,
Yes.
Darren. How are you?
I'm fair to average.
Good. Did you have any questions or comments for Lindsay?
The only question I had is where because I missed that very beginning part. Where are you at as far as the time frame where you are with this case?
I'm at my second hearing. I have to go on the 13th of June.
All right, now is the second hearing like what do they call that? A Jeopardy hearing, or is that like what are they figuring out where they're going from here? A permanency hearing or something?
No, it's not the permanency hearing, but in California they call it the jurisdictional hearing.
Okay.
Jurisdictional and dispositional hearing. See, she hasn't had a trial yet.
Gosh.
Okay.
I had one.
You only had the detention hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. But the actual real trial is like at the second, third, or fourth hearing. It's not at the first hearing.
Yeah, it's different here. It's always, I'm in awe when I'm listening to these, because in Maine you have a Jeopardy hearing and then you go right to a TPR. Like you get a Jeopardy hearing and then that's it. Like there's no in betweens. It's just bang bang and you're done. It's crazy. So when I listen to you guys talk about, like, oh, you have this third or fourth or sixth or eighth hearing, you don't get that in this state. You get one shot and that's it, man. And then it's off to the TPR. They go with you. So it just amazes me when I listen to you guys talk about this stuff that, it's wow, like they give you guys all kinds of chances in the world to fix your situation, but here it's so different. So I try to do that in comparative to, I like to ask that just because I'm in awe that in Maine it's so quick. Um, you know, so.
Oh, I do have one more thing. Um, I've been doing what CPS told me to do. I've been going to counseling like they told me to do. And I left my ex-boyfriend. They told me to do that too. And so I did both. And they said if I go to counseling, I get away from my ex, I could have her back. Now I'm fighting in court to get her back.
Okay. Well, we wish you luck
That's their
in your
stunt. Yeah.
struggle. And I want to thank you for being on this evening and sharing your story with us. If you have any questions, please give us a call. You see the
Okay.
telephone number bottom right-hand corner, right under Mr. Guai's nose.
Yeah.
888-888-6582.
Yes.
So
Oh,
just
other
give
way.
us a call. Okay. And Lindsay, I wish you luck. And if you have any other questions, give us a call back. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Good
Luck,
luck to
Lindsay.
you on your next hearing.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Did you notice somebody sitting next to her?
I kept seeing her do this and talking to someone, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't.
I think somebody was sitting next to her.
think they had the
Well,
cards up.
right, folks. So I want to tell everyone about a call that I received today, and this was a case that was in Southern California, and the judge in the juvenile court sent two of the children back east or the Midwest and placed two of the children with the father. And closed the case. The youngest child, who was the offspring of another father, was given to a relative back east or in the Midwest under legal guardianship. Fast forward maybe 3 to 5 years. The mother decides to move back to this Midwest state. And because the father, who had the two older children, got in some trouble, CPS took the kids away from that father and placed the kids back with the mother. This was exactly the opposite of what California CPS did. But time had gone by, and in this particular state, they look at things like child abuse and risk differently than we look at it here in California. So time has gone by, and she, was raising these kids just fine. Well, it turns out the legal guardian of the third child passes away from natural causes. And CPS here finds out about it. And CPS here wants to bring the child back to California and stick the child in a foster home. Now, this child happens to be, I think, 12 years old. Now, the mother, who already has two of the older children back, wants the child placed with her. Because even though she lost the kids in California, things have changed, different person, different situation. And CPS here is saying, no, we don't want you to have that child. And by the way, we think you lied to that state when you got your other two children back through the family law court. But in fact, she had an attorney, she had disclosed that there was a CPS case, but things were just so bad with the father that I guess the judge in the family law case there decided to place the children with the mother. And things have been going along fine. So apparently, and I'm not sure if this is the out of state attorney or the California attorney, is telling the mother and the mother's relatives that she can't get that third child back in her custody. All right. Now, I'm here to tell you that that is bad advice. It's wrong information. All right. Because they keep pointing to old evidence and even a psychological evaluation done way back when that said that the mother was not fit. And everyone thinks that that's going to be a problem in getting this third child back to the mother to join the two siblings. And I'm here to tell you that in a situation like that, you file a JV 180, a 388, and you make the appropriate motions and you ask for a hearing and a contested hearing, otherwise known as a trial, and you go and prove to the judge that the child should be returned to you no matter what was found way back when when the case was in California. And so one of the relatives recently asked me, well, what about the old case and the old allegations? You can't retry those allegations. And I said, you're absolutely correct, but there's no need to. The court looks at the situation now based upon changed circumstances. And one of the changed circumstances is, and the relative didn't look at it this way, one of the changed circumstances is that the mother has the other two children back. You know, it's that old adage where how can you be a danger to one child when you're taking care of two children already? So, you know, I suggested a plan of attack, but for some reason, I don't think the family believes my advice and my recommendations. And that's okay. I mean, it happens all the time. I tell people ABC and they think it's CDE or they think it's XYZ. So, you know, I'm telling you this. If you're ever in that situation, give us a call and I'll walk you through the steps. The bad part about her situation is that the county here in California apparently is dead set against her and getting the third child back, and has even made the accusation that she's lying to the court back there and not telling them about the dependency case, which is not even an issue right now, believe it or not, because the court has to look at the situation now, not 3 or 4 years ago. All right. Did either of you guys have any questions for me this evening? I see Mr. Guai. Are you nodding off there, Mr. Guai?
I don't have any questions for you.
Okay. Any stories to share or anything?
No.
Okay. Mr. Guai, any questions for me?
No. I just don't understand why they can take, the two kids, they get the two kids, back, and then the third. Like, what is the process with as far as it goes, with reinstating your rights as a parent? Like, how far does that go? Like, I know that you have to reinstate your rights, when it goes to that point, but do parents still have a chance of getting their kids back? Like in this situation, like you just said, with a third child is out there, like how does that go? What goes along with that?
Well, it's absolutely you have a chance. And as we found out, several months ago, you even have a chance after you get your rights terminated for 5 years. We had a woman appear on the show, and I happen to know her attorney, who got her child back after termination and got the rights instated. So
I mean, do you get the
you
same?
always have a chance.
Right, but do you get the same privileges? Or I guess if you say privileges, I mean, do they actually reinstate, or do they give you like a different inherent rights, or is it the same as if you were just a parent? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's kind of different when they reinstate your rights. I don't know. Do they give you the same? Are you just all of a sudden back to being the parent? I mean, how does that? I mean, I just
Yes,
don't.
you're just back to being the parent.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, there are a lot of anomalies that happen with these situations, and CPS getting involved. Sometimes it's just the social worker that's involved. Sometimes the social worker says one thing and you get a brand new social worker and they say something else.
Right.
That's why I always warn people, when you're at the juris dispo hearing and they ask you to make a deal and just do services for 6 months and you'll get your kids back, that's a very dangerous strategy, because by definition, or at least in LA County, you get a new social worker assigned to you who may not feel the same way.
Right.
who may want you to do extra stuff, who may look at your situation a lot differently. So and in my opinion, before you take a deal like that, you should definitely talk to your lawyer and get perspective.
Yeah. I'm just baffled that in this state I'm just baffled that in all these states, everything's different. Like, why is there not one unified system that they go by to go through these processes? Like,
Is there one unified system for anything in this world?
well, I mean, if you get a speeding ticket in this state, you get a speeding ticket in California. I mean, they're pretty much the same
No,
system.
sometimes no, no. Pretty much is the key phrase.
Okay.
Right? They're not the same. Speeding in one state is not speeding in another, and vice versa.
Do you feel that it would benefit this process if there was one unified code for everything?
I think that it would, but here's the issue. Here's the issue. Under the Constitution of the United States, relationships between children and parents are primarily a state issue. So, you go back to the founding fathers and you go back to conservatives versus liberals. What do liberals want? They want a strong federal government.
Mhm.
What do conservatives want? They want a strong state government. Every state decides on their own. But what you just told me means a unified system means you're liberal.
No. Whoa. I asked you if it would benefit this. I did not say that it was. I did not say that at all.
Well,
No,
but when you
sir.
but when you suggest a unified system, you are suggesting that the states aren't able to do it by themselves. Therefore, you want the federal government to step in and
Well,
protect
you know what?
parents everywhere.
Maybe in this case, so because the state that I'm in doesn't seem to know what their head from their whatever is.
Yeah,
That's
but
feel.
theoretically, if you're going to do that for CPS cases, why don't you do it for other things? Why don't you become a strong central federal government person and join the Democrats?
No, sir. No. But don't you
If you are
don't you put those
truly
words in my mouth, Mr. Davis.
if you are truly a conservative, which you claim to be, you are all for states' rights. Now, here's the problem: when the state is against you, you talk about strong central federal government.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. In the state of Maine, where you live here, you hate summer times because it's too hot, but you hate winter times because it's too cold. You can't wait for summer when it's winter, but you can't wait till winter when it's summer. So this is the problem with being a Mainer. You can't make up your own mind about the state, what you like or what you don't. So by no means am I a Democrat ever.
Well, have you ever thought about moving from the state of Maine?
I have. You know what? I've tried many times actually, and you always get stuck back here for some reason.
Well, it's one of those things like, the current argument and discussion that's going along about women's rights and abortion. You know, um, Abortion was a right that was federally protected for 50 years. And now a
Mhm.
very conservative Supreme Court has said, no, we're not going to federally protect that anymore. It's up to the states. Right.
Do
So
you feel that
you could come to California and get an abortion.
right?
But other states, you can't go and get an abortion. And then other states, it's different term, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever the term is. So it's different from state to state now. And, one of those things where it was just unified for the last 50 years by a very liberal Supreme Court way back when.
Right.
And now a very conservative Supreme Court has overturned that and said, no, we're going to leave it up to the states to decide on whether a woman in that state can get an abortion. The only problem is that they can't stop a woman from a state where abortion is legal to traveling to a state where abortion or where it's illegal to a state where it's legal.
Mm,
Anybody
right.
can now fly to California and get that abortion they couldn't get in, their own home state. So did it really solve any problem? I don't know.
Well, I feel that I don't even think that whole argument was about abortion. I think it was more or less that argument is about the government and your state being able to tell you what you can do with your own body.
Right. You might be right. And typically, There's a concept in federal court called abstentionism, which means that federal courts will not get involved in things that are traditionally states' rights provinces. For example, you can't file a federal case for a divorce because that subject is basically reserved for the state. You can't file a case about, hey, I want custody and visitation, right? Because that's, presumably a state's rights. That's why CPS cases it's defining the relationship between a child and a parent and what's good or bad or allowed or not allowed. That's a state rights issue. That's why it's in state court. Now, you can sue a social worker for violating your civil rights in a federal court, but that's something totally different. And
Yeah.
although it is tangentially related to it, it's totally different, right? To get into federal court, you have to, as my professor from my first year in law school said, you have to knock on the right door. There's certain doors you can knock on to get in federal court. And if you can't get into that door, you don't get in federal court. If there's a federal issue, you can go to federal court. If there's what they call diversity between the plaintiff and defendant, they're from different states, you can go to federal court. If there's a federal law that says, you can only bring this in federal court, you get to go to federal court. And then there's, the complication, the twist on that. 1983, this federal civil rights law says you can go to state or federal court. But what happens sometimes, a lot of times, especially here in California, if you file a federal civil rights case in state court, the defendant has the right to remove it, to take it to the federal court, because that's their federal right. So, it becomes very interesting and analytical, and you get to see the politics that are involved now and that were involved way back when with our
Right.
founding fathers and throughout time, the history of this country about federal and, federal rights and states' rights. One of the things that was so important to every president, even, Obama and then Trump, and now Biden, is the number of federal judges that all of them appoint.
Right.
Because the type of federal judge you appoint, whether it's a states' rights or a federal government leaning judge, how expansive a federal ruling is going to be. And the pendulum swings back and forth through the decades, through the years. For 50 years, abortion was legal, or
Right.
not legal, but federally protected. Now, it's not federally protected. We just went from one way and we're going to swing back to the other. In the 60s, civil rights of African Americans was, prominent. But we just had, a African American president. So you get to see the pendulum swinging back and forth. And it happens in all areas. It happens in employment, the rights of employees.
Right.
It happens in, the rights between consumers with companies. Way back when I first became a lawyer, you could have a class action lawsuit. You could just file a class action lawsuit. You can get certified.
Right.
Now it's hard to get certified as a class action because the pendulum swings back and forth. People ask me all the time, "Oh, why don't you bring a civil rights action?" First of all, I'm thinking, well, you're 25 years too late to do that in this type of situation. And, class action lawsuits are a lot more than you think they are. To give you an example, let's say that I filed a class action lawsuit for Darren in a federal court in Maine. You know what the first thing you have to do, Darren? You have to spend money to notice the potential class. Okay, that
if you had
means
$400 or something, right?
no. That's the filing fee.
That's the filing fee.
Yeah, you might
Okay.
spend $200,000 giving notice to the people that could be in the class. How do you give notice? You send them a letter, which means paper, ink, folding it up, putting it in an envelope, putting postage on it, and mailing it to people.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but how much work and how much money does it take to mail 100,000 people?
Yeah. Right.
A lot. You know,
Yeah. I mean, just
mail
the
just
stamp alone, right? The stamp
right.
alone is what, 43 cents or whatever now.
So what do you know, when say, well, let's do a federal lawsuit. Well, you got $200,000 just to send out the envelope?
It's just the stamps.
No, what are you talking about? Oh, like, oh, never mind, forget it.
Right.
And one of the things people like about, there's a concept in the law that you learn about in law school. It's called the freeloader or free rider effect. And that means that if Miss G was bringing a lawsuit and she was paying for it or help paying for it, but you would benefit, you would like stand on the sidelines and root her on, but you wouldn't put up any money to
Right.
help Miss G win her case. So the free rider effect is in full force because that's just a natural human reaction. Not everybody wants to commit financially to something. They'll
Right.
take the benefit, but they won't take on the burdens.
Right.
So, suing people is, and especially governments, governmental entities or governmental employees
Well, everybody
can
makes it
be,
seem like it's so quick and easy. Yeah, get their
yeah,
insurance policy,
and it's
go
not.
send it, there off you go.
Yeah, it's not. You know, I could tell you go get a heart operation, to get the bypass, take the crud out of your heart. I said that really easy. You
Right.
know how complicated that is?
Just crack you open real quick and just,
Right.
yeah.
You
Don't
know
worry
how
about the team
complicated,
of
right.
12 doctors and the.
Exactly. Doctors and nurses, the hospital, the
Right.
equipment,
The
you know,
medicines, the whole nine, the insurance, the money.
right. And then the recovery.
Right.
Oh yeah, you go get open heart
Just real
surgery.
quick and get
Solve the
that heart
problem.
surgery done for you. Yep.
Lawsuits are the same way, especially lawsuits against governmental entities. People think that they can just sue a social worker for screwing up, and that's not true.
Right.
Not
Well,
true.
there's the problem too, is you're getting a lot of these groups walking around saying, "Oh, assume they're not covered under the." No, that's a lie. They are still covered. They have their immunities, and it takes a lot of work to actually go and sue them and get them. And they have to do certain things to be able to sue or go after their bonds, or like it's not just as easy, like you said. It's not just real quick and simple. Problem is, there's a lot of people walking around saying this stuff, and people just want to believe it,
Yeah.
because they want to believe that they want some sort of compensation for their kids being taken. And that's, I get that, like you feel like you got short-sighted, so you deserve something. So I think a lot of these places are trying to make it like, okay, well, we'll sue these people and we'll get something for you. And
Right.
and that's not necessarily the right thing to do for these groups. Everybody needs to be very careful with the information that they give to these people. I mean, it's almost like selling someone that's broken down a broken down car. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it will just, like you're very vulnerable as a parent when you lost your child, and you get all these false hopes from all these groups that are like, oh, we can sue them, or let's do this class action lawsuit, or let's do this, or let's do that. And they're going nowhere, and they're wasting people's time.
Right. Right. Okay, we've come to the end of the show. We're a few minutes over. Thank you both for being co-hosting tonight. And tonight's Wednesday, yeah. So we'll be on tomorrow, Thursday at 7 p.m. and we'll see everybody then. Good night, all.
Good night. Miss Cheese mad at you.